Can I get a drum roll, please? Welcome to Rockin' the Country, guys. I'm Don. I've got a gift request from Mr. MontaukEd down in North Carolina, but he's only been in North Carolina, Ed, for about 4 years, maybe 5? But other than that, spent his life in Montauk, which is on the eastern tip of Long Island. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. And but Ed made a gift to the channel for me to do Johnny Cash's song Drums. Now, I don't know this song. I don't know if it's a patriotic song. I don't think I know the song. But so I'm going to call this a reaction because I have no clue really what I think I'm getting into. Although I may have heard it elsewhere. I'll find out when I get into it. But Ed, thank you for this gift and this request. You really have me curious, but Ed knows me very, very well, and when he makes a request for a song, it's generally one that is going to get me going. Ed, in many ways, thinks like I do. He's an absolute gentleman. Those of you who follow the channel and read the comments and interact with Ed know that Ed is an absolute gentleman. So the song here is likely going to have a cultural connection, a societal connection, to some measure of decency. Anyhow, let's see if I'm right. Here we go. Drums.
From the Indian reservation to the governmental school, well, they're going to educate me to the white man's golden rule. And I'm learning very quickly, for I've learned to be ashamed. And I come when they call Billy, though I've got an Indian name.
Yeah.
And there are drums beyond the mountain, Indian drums that you can't hear. There are drums beyond the mountain, and they're getting mighty near. And when they think that they've changed me, cut my hair to meet their needs, will they think I'm white or Indian, quarter blood, or just half-breed? Let me tell you, Mr. Teacher, when you say you'll make me right in...
Special shout out to David Emsweiler right now, and you know why.
500 years of fighting, not one Indian turned white. And there are drums beyond the mountain, Indian drums that you can't hear. There are drums beyond the mountain, and they're getting mighty near.
And I think Jeff Cather too.
That I knew nothing when you brought me here to school, just another empty Indian, just America's first fool. But now I can tell you stories that are burnt and dried and old, but in the shadow of their telling walks the thunder, proud and bold. And there are drums beyond the mountains, Indian drums that you can't hear. There are drums beyond the mountain, and they're getting mighty near. Lone Pine and Sequoia, Handsome Lake and Sitting Bull. There's Mandas, Colorado, with his sleeves so red and full. Crazy Horse the legend, those who bit off Custer so. They are dead, yet they are living with the great Geronimo, and there are drums beyond the mountains, Indian drums that you can't hear. There are drums beyond the mountains, and they're getting mighty near. Well, you may teach me this land's history, but we taught it to you first. We broke your hearts and bent your journeys. Broken treaties left us cursed. Even now, you have to cheat us. Even though you think us tame, in our losing, we found proudness. In your winning, you found shame. And there are drums beyond the mountains, Indian drums that you can't hear. There are drums beyond the mountains, and they're getting mighty near.
What a production of a song. I mean, to incorporate the notion of drums in with that theme, absolutely fascinating. And the perspective, I mean, there's so much in there that just makes you have to pause and think. If you have a conscience, you'll pause and think about the meaning of all of it. I mean, the history of mankind is the history of the stronger taking things, if you will. It is the conquerors and the conquered. Everywhere in mankind's history, every country was formed by a conquering people. And, America, the early Americans fled Britain because they viewed it as oppressive. Church of Englandism and some of the history there. So they came here to give people rights, but then they wound up on a land that wasn't theirs. I'm not sure how the Indians wound up here, though. It's something that I'd like to study, like what we say the American Indians or the Native American Indians or just the Indians that were here. I'm not quite sure where they migrated from, assuming there was a migration, generally speaking. I think anthropologists generally acknowledge that the first people lived in Africa, which meant the U.S. Indian, the American Indian, those who wound up here prior to the U.S. colonies being formed and people, immigrating from England over to the United States and then becoming the United States, how they wound up here. But the history of mankind, the history of the animal kingdom, it's just kill or be killed. It just takes different forms. And then when you have a sense of sort of like justice, or when you root for the underdog, if you will, or you see the treatment of certain people, you want to have at least a remedy of it. But then when you hear, yeah, you can educate me, like in the context of the song, you can educate me in your ways, the golden rule. And the golden rule makes sense because you've all been taught it. And it may even make sense to us, but it doesn't necessarily capture how we think. The totality of it, it may not be our first principle. Maybe our first principle is just be. There are many, and that's one thing I enjoy about being a philosopher, in a sense, where you look at different lines of thought. But then when you have a social conscience, and then you look and you say, how does this apply to people? And you can say, all right, the golden rule, as good as it is in ways, there are deficiencies to it. There seems to be a self-interest. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Okay, well, that says, all right, well, you do have a frame of reference yourself. Assuming there's a universal way in which people want to be treated, then, yeah, I mean, that's not a bad starting point, because you don't have to go to books to figure out how you'd like to be treated. But, there are limitations to it, and it can be self-serving. But all that said, the history in the US and educating people, still, you can show people what you think is a good thing, but if it's not what they themselves want or how they want to be shown it, it's actually going to breed resentment. And I understand that. So Ed, of course you got me off and running on this. I mean, I could probably talk for at least 2 hours, maybe 20 on a song like this, because it's so expansive. There's so much to it, as you'd expect. But what a delivery Johnny did. And sometimes a story is better told. Somebody needs to shed light on something, or they want to shed light on something, and you have an outsider do it. Now, I don't know if Johnny had Native American blood. I don't know if he's from the bloodline in some way of a tribe. But even if not, I mean, when Johnny sings a song, it gets attention. And it gets attention, and it gets into folks who might not otherwise care to know about this kind of stuff. All right, fair enough. It's a good thing, and I'm sure it's appreciated by a lot of folks. But I wonder who wrote this. That is fascinating to me, but I like that Johnny chose to sing it. Am I going to rate this, Ed? I am. It wasn't done in honor of American Indian or of Geronimo. It incorporated that storyline into telling this message. But the number that popped into my head immediately was a 9.2. I absolutely loved that Johnny chose to do this. I liked the way some of the lyrics were presented. And it wasn't whiny, but it was told basically from the side of somebody who had been dominated, and you're going to bring me as the first into your school and you can educate me. But the bottom line is, it's not my way. It's not my choice. So maybe you make yourself feel better by doing this, but we got dominated, and I don't, nobody likes being dominated like that way. Nobody likes being conquered. So that's what happened. So think of that what you will, guys. All right, folks. I look forward to reading your comments on this one. It might be a lively discussion. Ed, thank you again, my friend. Of course, this is Ed being Ed, and just having a very loving, kind heart. And that's just who Ed is at his core. It's just that simple. So have a great day, folks. I'll see you on another video, and keep rocking the country.